Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. So, very often new players will ask, what build should I play? What class should I play? And my answer is typically play whatever you're passionate about. But if you don't really have a preference and you just want to know, okay, what's going to give me the easiest, best new player experience, what's going to be a good class to get started with, my typical answer, in my opinion, is two-handed fighting Paladin. So in this video, I'm going to go through a build for a First Life two-handed fighting Paladin, free to play, and also I'm going to explain how to play it. So it's going to be a guide and a build guide and kind of a guide for playing Paladin for new players. So Paladin, why Paladin? So Paladin is always my pick when new players ask me this question because Paladin offers good DPS, very good survivability, good self-healing, good utility. It's just a great all-around class. And it's also easy to play, fairly easy to play and simple. So it's just a really, really good option for a new player. The build I'm going to go through here is going to be viable. Any difficulty, any group, raids, whatever, no matter where you go in your journey, you can always play this build. It's going to be viable. It's going to be a build that's going to be more of a classic, pure Paladin to keep things simple for new players. The gameplay footage you're seeing in this video is me running the build on a level 7 First Life character with only starter gear. This build, being a classically styled pure build, should not change much with time. It should not get outdated over the long run. So that's the other good thing about these classic pure builds. I would suspect that this build would be extremely viable even years down the line if you are seeing this some years after I record it. So before we get started on some of the chunky stuff, the description below does have timestamps for screenshots of everything you might want to reference, enhancements, Destinies, things like that. There's also going to be a link to a related ddo.com forum thread if you want to check that out. So let's talk about your starting stats, and here's a screenshot of those. So the starting stats for a 28-point build, which is what you're going to start out as a true free-to-play player, it's going to be Strength 16, Dex 8, Constitution 16, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 10, Charisma 14. So what do these stats mean, and what do these stats mean? Why do you take these numbers on the stats? So Strength is your main stat. It's for attack and damage. This is going to be a strength-based build. Constitution gives you hit points, so it's always important to take. I always like taking 14 or 16 con, preferably 16 con on builds. Wisdom you need a little bit of in order to cast your spells, so there's going to be more details on this later. Charisma you need quite a bit on a Paladin. It's a very nice tertiary stat because it adds to Paladin abilities like Divine Grace, which boosts your saves, so it makes you more resistant to crowd control. Divine Might enhancement, it also adds to that, so more charisma means you get more attack and damage and tactics DCs, and we'll talk more about that ability later. Charisma also adds to how strong your lay on hands are, which your lay on hands is your best source of self-healing on this Paladin build. Now, if you happen to have a 32-point build, which you might have bought in the store, or maybe you're a VIP, something like that, you can, instead of 14 charisma, make it 16 charisma, but otherwise you would keep the stats the same as a 28-point. So let's get into race. So there's a bunch of races you could choose. My personal recommendation is human. Human is my recommendation because, and this is of course, I'm only considering the free-to-play races, but human of the free-to-play races is my recommendation because they get an extra feat at level 1, which is really helpful for this build. It allows us to take Stunning Blow early, which is really helpful leveling for crowd control and a source of helplessness damage. What that means is basically you can make enemies helpless, which means you do more damage. You can do more damage to them. So other races that work well, you could pick something like Dragonborn or Dwarf or Wood Elf. So if you're really passionate about, say, one of those races, you can play them and it's fine, but you will have to drop Stunning Blow because you'll have one less feat. So if you decide to do that, just be aware of the feats I recommend later. You'll have to take either Power Attack or two-handed fighting at level 3. So you'll probably take Power Attack at level 1, two-handed fighting at level 3 instead of taking Stunning Blow at level 3. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let's talk about feats. So your feats on this build are mostly all dedicated to better attack and damage, so there's not too much to say regarding most of them. They're mostly passive and self-explanatory as to what they do, but there are a couple abilities I'll comment on. Stunning Blow you get at level 3, which we've previously discussed, but Stunning Blow is an active ability. You need to put this on your hotbar, so if you're a new player, you need to go to your character sheet, go to your feats list, and pull it to your hotbar to use and put it on a hotkey. If you're not sure how to use hotkeys, in hotbars. I'll put a link below in the description of a tutorial video for new players I did on that. But Stunning Blow is super nice when you're leveling, for reasons we've already discussed. So to make Stunning Blow work well and consistently, you need to equip strength items and items with stunning or combat mastery effect on them to increase your DC or difficulty check, just to make it work regularly. So a simplified version of this is the higher your DC, the harder it is for enemies to resist it. So you also increase your DC by having your trance ability, Divine Might, from the Knights of the Chalice enhancement tree on. So you'll need to use that active ability. It's basically a spell. Next, let's talk about the feat Power Attack. So Power Attack is a stance. You need to drag that off your feat list as well. Put it on from your character sheet, put it onto a hotbar and toggle it on. But basically, that gives you more damage. It costs you some to hit, but it does add some flat damage, which is really nice, especially throughout the the heroic levels, which is the first 20 levels of the game. Another feat I want to highlight here is Unyielding Sovereignty, which is a really nice self-heal. Or heal for a party member. But once you get to level 6, you get this active ability. Again, it's one you need to drag to a hotbar to use, but what it does, it removes most status conditions and heals you to full. It also removes negative levels and death penalties. It has a long cooldown though, so you can't use it too often, but it's an extremely powerful utility tool to have on your belt. Alignment, not much to say there. Paladins must be lawful good, so you only have one choice of alignment, which is lawful good. Skills, so in terms of skills, I'm recommending UMD, Heal, and 1 rank of Tumble. I like always taking UMD on builds. It's what I recommend. It's so nice. It allows you to use a variety of scrolls and wands. So scrolls such as Teleport, very nice. Teleport scrolls, super helpful for getting around the overworld fast. It's something you can buy at higher heroic levels when you get your UMD high enough, but there's a variety of other scrolls that you can use with a UMD score, which I won't get into, but all that in this video. But check out scrolls and vendors that you might want to use and experiment with them. The heal skill boosts your positive spell power. Now, your main source of healing, self-healing, is going to be your lay on hands, but heal does boost your cure spells, and you do use those to supplement your lay on hands, so it's still nice to have. Now, I also am recommending 1 rank of Tumble, and that's nice so you can get a better tumble animation. To tumble, you can hold block and a direction, but tumbling gives you defensive benefits, so it's nice using. Not mandatory to use, but it's a really nice, has nice defensive benefits. Let's get into your heroic enhancements now, and I'll be showing a picture of that screenshot on the screen now. Great Sword, Favored Weapon in Knights of the Chalice is the first enhancement I want to talk about. I'm not going to go through every single enhancement, but I want to highlight some key ones. Exalted Smite, this is probably the best enhancement in the Knights of the Chalice tree, and you want to have this on a convenient hotkey when you get high enough level to take it. It's an area of effect Smite Evil, which adds +2 to critical multiplier, in addition to the normal benefits of Smite Evil, which are twice your charisma bonus to attack and damage, equal to your Paladin level. So you want to be using Exalted Smite as much as possible. It does have limited charges, but it just adds a lot of extra damage. So you want to be aware of your charges and just use it as much as you can. Maybe save up a few smites for the boss fight. Let's talk about action boosts. So you do get access to 2 different action boosts. You get human versatility melee power boost through core 1 of the human tree, but you also get a similar boost through the Knights of the Chalice tree in action power boost. So you want to use these to help with burst DPS. These are active abilities, again, you need to put on your hotbar. As a free-to-play player, you don't have access to the Destinies tree to get haste boost, and we're not, say, splashing a level of fighter here, so I wanted to keep it a pure build. To get haste boost is the best action boost in the game, so you don't have access to that as a free-to-play player, but what you have is something, it works pretty well, so just be aware of that. Now, if later you get Vistani, either by buying it in the DDO store or buying the Ravenloft expansion and unlocking it by completing the Ravenloft expansion on Elite, then you could use Vistani. You can use Vistani and get haste boost, and I would recommend that over these action boosts. A couple other things to note here. The action power boost from Knights of the Chalice tree is a little better than the one from the human tree. It has a 10 extra melee power if you take all 3 ranks. So you want to use the action boost from the Knights of the Chalice tree first. So another important thing to note, these abilities share a cooldown, so you can't use them simultaneously, but they do have separate charges. So taking both does give you double the action boost, which is why one of the reasons why I'm recommending both. Plus, the human version is core 1, so you're forced to take it anyway if you want to spend any points in the human tree. I mean, you could take a different action boost if you want, like the defensive one, but I find you would get more benefit from having an extra DPS boost. But if you want to take the defensive boost in human tree for extra PRR and such, you can. Next thing I want to talk about is the Sacred Defender tree, which you also get access to as Paladin. You have Sacred Defender stance in that tree, and you'll need to drag this to a hotbar and toggle it on. Again, it is a stance, so you need to bring it to a hotbar and toggle it on. A couple things about Sacred Defender stance: it gives you a lot of great defensive bonuses, but it does add threat, which makes monsters more likely to attack you instead of party members, as does the tier 1 enhancement in Paladin Commanding Presence. So if you do get to the point where you're in endgame and you start raiding, just keep in mind you don't want to take Commanding Presence. You want to toggle your Sacred Defender stance off when in raids, just because you could steal the aggro from the tank, which is really bad and can mess up raids. So just be aware of that. You need to get your threat off if you do get to raiding, which is the end game of DDO. But that's just an aside. As a new player, you're not going to get there anytime soon. You need to focus on just starting out right now. But that's something I just wanted to mention to you. Lay on Hands, as mentioned before, is your main self heal. Doesn't use positive spell power, as I said before, but you can heal. It heals for a lot, and also be aware you can heal not just yourself but also your party members. So be aware of that. It does have limited charges, but you can use it on yourself. You can use it on others. You don't have to rely on positive spell power to charge it. So don't think like if you add a healing item, positive spell power, devotion item, whatever, onto your character's gear set, it's not going to make your Lay on Hands heal for more. It's just based on your charisma score and paladin level. The Holy Combatant 2 enhancement in Tier 3 Knights of the Chalice gives you great swords as favored weapons. It's important to take this enhancement quickly. Once you do, only use great swords. Don't use any other weapon type, because no other weapon type is going to be treated as a favored weapon. And having a weapon be favored gives you a bunch of bonuses, such as through feats we're going to take, like Beloved of the Divine and Child of Faith, and other enhancements and such. So be aware that once you take this, make sure you only use great swords. Speaking of bonuses from favored weapon, the first core in the Knights of the Chalice tree, Slayer of Evil, is your Imbue toggle. So it's very important, once you get this, you take it off your character sheet, put it onto a hotbar, and toggle it on and leave it on permanently. This is our Imbue toggle. It gives you extra damage when toggled on when using a favored weapon. The Divine Might enhancement from Knights of the Chalice is your trance, as mentioned before. It's very important, gives you a big bonus to hit, to damage, to tactics DC for your stunning blow. So you need to put this on a hotbar, use it all the time. It should be up almost always. Let's get into Epic Destinies, and here's a picture of those. Some key Epic Destiny enhancements we need to talk about. The first one is Quick Cutter, which is extremely important, and this is from Fury of the Wild. It's an incredible DPS, AoE, or area effect option. You should be using it as your primary attack in fights once you get to epics. Now, this Epic Destinies only apply to levels 20 and above, but once you get there, you need to use Quick Cutter as much as possible. Primal Scream is an important buff, also from Fury of the Wild. It gives you lots of extra strength and constitution. In terms of the Shadow Dancer tree, which is the third tree I'm recommending here, it gives you a Dimension Door clicky in the second core. This is really handy in many scenarios, as it teleports you back to the beginning of quests. Your primary destiny, though, in this build is going to be Divine Crusader, which you go all the way up to tier 5 on. This really complements Paladin abilities well. Law Divine, super good. It gives you lots of extra damage die. Beckon Divinity, also in tier 5, is a mass raise. It doesn't matter where the party members are on the map. It brings everyone back to full health when you use this ability. Now, if you are a solo only player, there's no reason to take this, so spend those 2 points on something else. The last Epic Destiny enhancement I want to mention is the Holy Mantle from Crusader. You need to make sure you take that off and put it on a hotbar and toggle it on, just like many other abilities. You need to toggle it on to get its effects. Okay, let's talk about spells a little bit. So here's a screenshot of what I recommend for spell selection. As a Paladin, your spells are all healing and buffs. Paladin isn't an offensive spellcaster in DDO, but the spells it does get are really, really nice. So there are some super good long buffs Paladins get, 4 in particular that are special, very strong, that you need to be aware of. And you need to have these buffs up at all times. In terms of long buffs, Holy Sword is extremely vital. It gives you a ton of extra damage because it increases both your weapon's critical multiplier and critical threat range. So you need to make sure to have this up at all times. It should be something you cast, as are all of these 4 that I'm getting into here at the beginning of every quest. once you get them. You won't have Holy Sword at first, but you'll get it eventually. The second of these 4 essential Paladin buffs is Zeal. Zeal gives you 10% double strike, which is essentially 10% more DPS. Angel Skin, also very important. It's a large defensive bonus to PRR, MRR. And the 4th one I really want to highlight here is Righteous Command. Gives you a lot of extra melee power. So these 4 buffs, always cast them at the beginning of quests. So moving on now to less important but still very useful, more short-term buffs. Prayer is a nice luck bonus to attack, damage, and skill checks. Now, before you get Prayer, you get a spell early on called Divine Favor instead, and you should be using that until you get Prayer. Once you get Prayer, you don't need to use Divine Favor anymore because Prayer is basically Divine Favor but better, and they don't stack with each other. So Divine Favor is the lesser version of Prayer, essentially. Because it buffs skills, you can actually use Prayer to buff trappers or to help them disable traps, or you can use it to buff anyone else that uses any other skill check, whether it's like a Perform or an Intimidate skill check in a quest, anything like that. Any skill check, you can use it to buff someone, assuming most of the time it will help them. Most people don't have a luck bonus item equipped. Some do, but oftentimes it will give people higher skill check temporarily. Now, getting on to what I referenced earlier regarding spells. Spells in DDO have a minimum caster requirement. So for Paladin, your casting stat is Wisdom. So the minimum stat you need to have to cast a Paladin spell is 10 plus the spell's level. So what does this mean? This means to cast a level 1 Paladin spell, you need to have 11 Wisdom. This build starts out with 10 base Wisdom. This means you have to have a Wisdom item equipped in order to cast your spells, okay? So be aware of that. Wisdom items are extremely common, easily obtainable throughout the game. You get one in the starter area. They're very, very easily obtainable. So you just want to make sure as you're playing this build, you equip a Wisdom item. Alternatively, you can buy Owl's Wisdom Potions sold in the marketplace to temporarily increase your Wisdom if needed. It'll give you a +4 bonus that you would get through gear, but you can get it temporarily through a potion if you need it. Now, one thing to note is you don't get any spells on this Paladin build until level 4, so you have plenty of time to find one in your first several levels. And again, there's one in the starter area, so just main point I want to make, you need a Wisdom item. If you get that message that says, oh, you can't cast your spells because your Wisdom isn't high enough, but it shouldn't be difficult for you to remedy that problem. Regarding gear, I wanted to give a brief overview for players in terms of what to look for as you get started in DDO. So there are some essential stat items you'll want to have. So a strength item, a constitution item, and a charisma item. You'll want to have a wisdom item for casting we talked about before. So as you see these items, random gen loot, named loot, as you quest, make sure to pick them up and equip them. It's important to have a stat item for each of the stats you actually care about. Featherfall item, you actually get one of these in Korthos, the starter area. You get a clicky, but you want a Featherfall item for questing. When it comes to offensive things you'll be looking for, we talked about this before, but stunning or combat mastery, you'll want a item with one of these effects. This is so that your stunning blow a feat works. Deadly, this adds extra melee damage. Look for that trait if you can. Accuracy, this adds to your to hit, meaning that your attacks land more often. Seeker, this makes your critical hits hit for more. So if you can find something with a seeker on it, that's nice. Double strike is a really important one. If you see double strike items, this makes it so this increases the percentage chance to get a double strike effect, which basically means your attack does 2 attacks instead of 1. So this is a really good way to increase your DPS is to equip a double strike item. Now, when it comes to more defensive items, fortification, this adds to your immunity to critical hits. You'll want to get up to 100% fortification as soon as you can. Now, you can't early on, but whatever you can get in terms of fortification, this is a very common effect you see in random generated loot. Try to get a fortification item on. When it comes to other defensive things, you'll want to look for concealment if you can, like blurry or lesser displacement. If you can find one of these as you're questing, this helps. It adds a percentage chance for enemies to miss. The same for incorporality items, something like ghostly. This is another stacking effect that stacks on top of concealment that makes another additional chance for enemies just to miss you. Death block item, really important, makes you immune to instant death effects. And then finally, false life. Anything that adds hit points like false life is really important. So those are some of the basics just to get you started, guys. Things to look out for on this build that you'll want. Guys, let me know if you have any questions. I will link below the forum thread again, so you can respond there. You can comment on the YouTube video. If you have any questions, I will try my best to respond to those. So if you're a new player, hope you had fun with this build. Good luck and enjoy DDO. Have fun. But I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. Take care.